A very good opening hand of 2 fetch lands, some cantrips, and so forth.
He's sacrificing his Scalding Turn right away to get round number 4 started. We'll see if it's a Volcanic or a Trop.
But this hand's, arguably worse than the one that he drew up the first time around in the mirror match.
Yeah.
Because he's a lot more vulnerable to Stifle and Wasteland than his initial 7 was.
And the goose is loose. Let's get it rocking and a rolling. Costa will draw. Copy of Force of Will. Not a bad place to start. He'll sacrifice a Flooded Strand. Both players at 19. Both players searching up duels. Both players have tropical islands. We'll see what Matt wants to put together here for his first turn of the game. It'll be a Ponder. A little manipulation. A Wasteland.
Get him.
Delver of Secrets.
Get him!
Looks like a Stifle too. Patrick you're really wanting a Wasteland, aren't you?
I just love the dueling 4 Wasteland, 18 total lands deck mirror match. It's just delightful.
You are who you are.
Well, back when we were first starting playing Magic in '94, we all built 20 land decks because that's what it said to do in the rule book.
Okay.
And 4 strip mines.
Yes.
So most of our games were kind of like this. The cards were way worse, and we still had Shivan Dragons and stuff because, of course, you play with Shivan Dragon.
Yeah, duh.
But I'm pretty used to playing games where the only permanent play is like a Curd Ape, and no one has any lands.
So just a 1/1 Curd Ape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The very fair Curd Ape. Looks like a brainstorm here from Jessup. With the fetch land in play to try to make it a perfect one.
4 Mountain, 4 Forest, 4 Taiga, 4 Strip Mine, 4 Mistress Factories. That's just the mana base.
That's just good deck building.
Right. So there's something about watching this mirror match that takes me back to like middle school, basically.
I like the colorless lands in the Curd Ape deck.
Well, you can't cut Strip Mine or Mistress Factory.
Yeah, those cards are too good.
Those are the 8 most powerful cards you own by a mile.
Yeah.
So you can't cut those.
Gonna sacrifice the Flooded Strand now. We'll Jessup after resolving the brainstorm. Make it a perfect one. I feel like we might have a Volcanic Island on the way. And we do.
I think Eugene Harvey was the first one to suggest maybe you're not supposed to play 4 factories and like 22 lands, and we just laughed at him.
What an innovator.
So far ahead of the curve, even in the 8th grade.
Yep. I think we're doing this wrong. Oh, shut up and just
Yep.
cast your dragon.
Yep.
Wasteland the draw.
So the Wasteland on Costa's side of the table has gotten quite a bit worse here
Yes.
because you really want to be wastelanding when you're ahead on the board, not behind.
So instead he is brainstorming. Has found a copy of Chain Lightning among other options. 2 cards will be going back, and I imagine a Polluted Delta will be sacrificed here shortly.
And you see Costa here showing a lot of patience. Instead of just trying to tap out for Tarmogoyf here, he's trying to sequence his spells in such a way that nothing critical gets tagged by days. And Tarmogoyf's just one of the most important cards in the mirror match. It's huge, and if they're on red removal, it's impossible to get off the table past a certain point. Now, Jessup does have an edge because he's got copies of Dismember in his deck. So even if Tarmogoyf gets to 4/5, he has an answer. And it's possible Costa's line of play here is be conservative, don't play into days, make sure when Tarmogoyf gets played, it's outside of bolt range. And if he plays a slow game trying to set this up, if Jessup has Dismember, really bad news for Costa.
Blue Delta sacrificed. There's Volcanic Island for Matt. So both these players off to pretty good starts, but Costa without a board presence. He's just doing a lot of manipulating at this point. Trying to set up the perfect hand to get himself out of a difficult situation. I think we might see the Chain Lightning go towards the Delver of Secrets. Though he does have a Delver of his own. So some options here for Costa. And he's just going to pass the turn back.
Yeah. I think Costa is saying, my hand's good enough here that I can afford to take some hits here and just never get anything dazed.
Jessup took a look with the Delver, but it was not something to flip it. Looked like he picked up a copy of Tarmogoyf for the turn. Looks like he's going to begin with a Ponder. Ponder's going to resolve. So let's take a look at 3 cards. Wasteland is 1, Goyf is 2, Daze is 3.
Get him.
Not bad. Patrick is imploring Danny to get him.
Get him.
Yep.
You got dazed too.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good with strip mine.
He has it all.
It's another card in the graveyard, too. Gets up 7.
Well, he's taking a wasteland. Of course, the question, of course, is when to use this wasteland.
Well, I think you're... I guess he's going to just do it up front. I think I would have preferred just to do it after combat, because Costa could be in a spot here where he says, well, I'm not going to bolt now because I'm playing around days. But once you expose the wasteland, he might feel like he has to do it regardless. Doesn't matter too much in the scheme of things.
Gonna go to Tropical Island. There's a Stifle. Will Jessup use the days? He's gonna float a mana. Smart. Doesn't want to get dazed.
Yep.
All these small interactions. Maybe he won't float now. Just pick up his Volcanic Island. All right. Daze wins. Wasteland wins. Both players stuck on one land. But again, Jessup is the one with the board presence.
Yep. And approaching 7 cards in his graveyard, too. And with the Dismember in hand, has an answer to Tarmogoyf if that's what Costa's playing towards.
There's Wasteland. Get him.
Get him!
Got him.
Yep.
Chain Lightning. Get your Delver out of here. Costa has really set himself up into this position.
Right, although I don't know if he has green mana in his hand.
I think that's the issue.
He may be down to just Wasteland Volcanic. And his Tarmogoyf's not even good if he gets to it because of the Dismember.
And because of that daze that Jessup just drew.
Although, he can just get him.
Yeah. Hard to say no. He has been gotten. Costa, Delver, pass it. In. Yep, that's fine.
2 permanents to 1, pretty big advantage.
Are we flipping? Not yet.
That Costa has 2/3 of the permanents in play.
Costa will serve for 1 point of damage here. Fast that turn back. Costa needs that Delver to flip so he can trade with the Mongoose. Mongoose will come over for 3 more yet again. Will Delver flip? The answer is yes. It's a ponder.
And Costa's definitely just looking to trade here.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
not trying to race at all.
He will cast that ponder. It will resolve. Matt will take a look at 3 cards. Blue to Delta is one of them. That's a second land for him. Hard to pass that up, and he won't. He'll sacrifice that Delta now. Doesn't have to worry about Stifle. I imagine we'll have a Tropical Island on the way. There is the blue-green dual land. Matt Costa very, very comfortable playing this deck and in the mirror match.
Has taken a very patient pacing with this game.
There's an Immel Mongoose. He can serve with a Delver now because Mongoose can't be killed via Lightning Bolt or any nonsense like Dismember. It's also a 3/3 right now given the size of Costa's graveyard, so he can trade with Danny's. Danny's draws a Lightning Bolt. That's not going to help. He'll attack. Costa will block, of course. There'll be a passing of the turn. Costa has all of the permanents in play, all 3 of them. Yeah, attack for 3 now. How about a Tarmogoyf? Sounds good.
As we mentioned at the top of the round, often these games end with someone having no permanents in play.
Indeed. Now, Jessup drew a very important card here. He drew a copy of Volcanic Island, which turns on his Lightning Bolt. That's mighty important for him, as that's one of the few ways he can win this game is running Lightning Bolts.
Yeah, he can cast Bolt right now and hope that he rips a Bolt and Costa can't counter it.
Now, what's interesting here is he's got a Dismember and a Lightning Bolt in hand. Those are also answers to what's in play. He can Dismember that Tarmogoyf. He can Lightning Bolt that Delver Secrets. But am I supposed to just go upstairs and ignore? Or am I supposed to kill your creatures?
I think it's just pretty hopeless to try to pay 4 life for a Dismember. He loses to all the same cards. He's not baiting a Daze regardless here.
He does have a Daze in his hand as well. So now he has to make a really difficult decision of if I'm supposed to try to kill these creatures or if I'm supposed to just Lightning Bolt you and then hope to peel another Lightning Bolt to win the game.
I think Lightning Bolt is on top of Danny's deck is higher odds than I kill the Tarmogoyf, then kill the Insect Aberration, then draw a Tropical Island for my Tarmogoyf, and all of this matters. They're both very, very low odds because Danny has to have a Bolt on top and both have to resolve, but I don't think he can win the game with the removal spells.
I don't love his chance to win the game with the removal spells. But for number 5 on our Season 2 leaderboard, he's got to figure out what the best line of play is to give himself the best chance to win. He's going to try the dismember route. At least that's what he's reached for. He'll take 4 to cast and try to get Tarmogoyf off the table.
Another tiebreaker for me in this whole sequence is it's very valuable to conceal that you have dismember in your deck.
Sure.
So even if the odds are the same, they're very, very low, I would still rather go down the lightning bolt path.
There's Daze. Tarmogoyf's dead. Jessup is down to 7. Costa going to quickly untap and take a draw here. Picked up a copy of Force Will. That might be the check mark. Delver's going to come across. It's 4-4. Wasteland the draw here for Jessup.
You can get him on the way out.
There's never enough land destruction for you. Costa will draw. Copy of Stifle. In. Will Jessup try to fire off this lightning bolt now? Doesn't want to run in a daze, but almost has no choice. He'll go to 1. Costa's not going to move. Doesn't have to.
Nope.
Costa has a lethal lightning bolt in hand, but I don't have to cast it yet. Jessup going to draw. Costa says, how about in the upkeep, I'll lightning bolt you. This means you have to have it all, and Force of Will is not something that even works here. That's going to do it. Matt Costa's going to win game number 1 here over Danny Jessup. The Team Delver mirror goes to the player on the left after an expertly played game 1.
Showed a lot of patience there, made sure that he just hit his land drops, didn't get exposed too badly to Stifle, and eventually he was able to flip the script, blow up all of Danny's stuff, and win with his leftovers. Very well executed game.
Let's talk sideboards. That means let's talk Danny Jessup.
3 copies of Pyroblast, 2 copies of Gravedigger's Cage, 2 copies of Rough Tumble, a copy of Submerge, a Flusterstorm, an Ancient Grudge, a Sulfur Elemental, a Sylvan Library, a Life from the Loam, and a Spell Snare. I think you are going to see the Flusterstorm come in here. The copies of Submerge can be excellent in this kind of matchup. If Matt gets it all sloppy or Danny is just on the front foot, it can be very, very powerful here. I think the 1 copy of Life from the Loam will also come in this matchup, as Danny can try to establish a lock with that and Wasteland.
Take a look at the other side of things here for Costa. He's got 2 Dismember, a Submerge, 2 Spell Snare, a Corrosion Grip, an Ancient Grudge, a Flusterstorm, 2 Rough Tumble, a Life from the Loam, a Pivot Needle, 2 Pyroblast, 1 Blue Elemental Blast, and 1 horribly written deck list. This is unacceptable.
Sloppy.
Really
sloppy handwriting.
Really bad. What do we like here if you can read it?
Much the same deal here. The additional creature removal spells, the Dismember and the Submerge, are very good in this kind of matchup here. The Loam will come in, again, to try to establish a lock alongside Wasteland and the cheap counter spells. The Red Blast can potentially come in, though those cards are bad in a lot of spots when you're facing down Tarmogoyfs and so forth. Not very efficient. But the Flusterstorm is pretty potent in this matchup. Good in a lot of spots. But both of these players are going to be doing roughly the same thing. More removal, more tempo plays, some more counter spells.
This is our last event of Season 2, our last standalone event. Of course, we do have our Season 2 Invitational taking place in 2 weeks at the Origins Game Fair. So we'll talk about Season number 3 as we work our way through the summer, and starting off with the biggie, the Grand Prix.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. We're going to have a promotion and more information during the broadcast about Grand Prix Charlotte. That's modern, June 12th to 14th. Standard in Indianapolis. Then we go back to Baltimore for a Standard Open Series event. Chicago for the first time, July 18th and 19th. After Chicago, we go back to Richmond, a Legacy Open in Washington, D.C., a Standard Grand Prix in London, August 14th through 16th, a Modern Open Series event in Charlotte, and then the Season 3 Invitational in New Jersey, Standard and Legacy as the invitational formats, with a Standard 2-day $20,000 Open Series event, August 28th through 30th.
You get to go home.
Oh, yeah.
Back to the Jersey.
Right down the road from where I grew up.
Should be a lot of fun. Season 3 going to be a pretty lengthy season. Take us all the way through the summer. Expect to see a lot of people out. No excuse. There's no school.
No.
Play some Magic. And for every Season 3 event that you do go to, you get this bad boy. We just unveiled a little earlier today. It is Tassiper the Golden Paw. Brand new playmat, our little parody series.
Yeah, the Polar Punch playmat getting retired after this Open Series event, and this will be available all throughout Season 3 for everyone who registers for our 2-day $20,000 Open Series events.
And you see a little dog hanging out there, and you can pick out some of the intricacies of the artwork as you do take a look at it. But as Patrick did mention, no strings attached. You sign up, main event, you get one of these things.
Yeah, I love that the dog is enslaved but totally happy about it.
Yeah, just living the dream.
Exactly. Just hanging out.
There's some food up there. No banana. Trying to see what that cat's eating over there. It looks like a pork chop.
Yeah, that's whatever. Cats eat.
They just eat anything, right?
I think there's some mice in there hanging out.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The dog just totally happy to hang out. This is actually a really good contrast of, your sinister, diabolic, manipulative cat, like most domestic cats, and you're just happy to be their dog, like most dogs.
Just hanging out.
Just fascinated by the world around him, looking at things, hanging out with people.
Doesn't care that he's enslaved.
Yeah, doesn't care at all. Totally happy. Cat conspiring to kill its owners.
As usual.
As usual. It just works on so many levels.
Jessup will be on the play here for game number 2. Costa was able to win game number 1 after some very skillful play from the teamer Delvermeer. Jessup is happy with his hand, it seems. We're underway. Volcanic Island, a passing of the turn. No manipulation, no nothing. I smell a stifle.
Oh, yeah. And Danny just pulling it to the front.
Yep. Mac does not have a fetch line, though. He just has Tropical Island into a Nimble Mongoose.
Like I said, just drawing the basics, the dual lands, rather, just so important.
Jessup maybe going to fire off a Brainstorm. He'll actually just cast a Daze, float a mana, and get that Nimble Mongoose off the board. Important to keep that thing out of here. He'll draw. Does he have a Wasteland? Nope, just a Volcanic and a passing of the turn. Costa will draw. Picks up a copy of Flooded Strand. Stifle, a really high variance card in the mirror.
Yeah. Although it's, I think on the balance, it's very, very powerful. Because there's just so few lands. It's hard to sit there all day long. The decks aren't good at just making their land drops naturally.
Delver Secret's the play. Upkeep, gonna go after the land, will Costa. Jessup with the Stifle. He can stifle the Wasteland activation. Looks like that's what he's gonna do. That'll work. Now Danny gets to draw a copy of Dismember, 2 copies of that card in hand, and those are pretty painful, though they are very good.
It's a removal spell that can answer Tarmogoyf almost no matter how long the matchup goes, because they're generally speaking are not permanent types other than, or card types rather, other than lands, creatures, instants, and sorceries.
Yep. Not going to find enchantments or artifacts around these parts.
It's very rare. I mean, there's a Sylvan Library in each player's sideboard. Maybe they brought it in, but Dismember should be good for the duration of the game, assuming Danny has a mana, which is not a given.
Scalding Tarn was the play there for Jessup. Costa reveals Spell Pierce. Though that Spell Pierce is not in his hand just yet. That's actually on top of the deck. Because we are still in the upkeep. That's when you reveal for Delver, which means Jessup's going to sacrifice Scalding Tarn. Looks like that sacrifice is going to resolve. No Stifle here from Costa, so Danny gets to search up a land. Looks like it's going to be a Tropical. So we might see the Dismember here.
Yep.
It'll be 4 life to cast in its attempt to take care of the Delver. That'll work. Costa will draw the Spell Pierce now. He'll sacrifice his Flooded Strand very quickly. On the hunt for a Volcanic Island, so he has all colors of mana. There it is. We might see a Tarmogoyf here.
Yeah, if he's acting on his main phase, it's the most likely scenario.
He's actually just going to sacrifice, not have to worry about the Stifle.
Yep.
And opting not to cast the Tarmogoyf that he actually has in his hand.
Yeah, we saw him last game just show a lot of patience playing around Daze. Much the same here. He's making his land drop, so is Danny. Game's going to go on for a long time, and not much of a rush to just run something in.
Flooded Strand the play there for Jessup. Here's a Brainstorm. Pyroblast is going to go right after that. The way that Costa is playing his turns, his mannerisms, very confident in his decisions.
Yeah. It looks like his mind gets made up ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then he acts.
There's a Goyf. See Costa's hand. Spell Pierce 2 bolts. Jessup knows about Spell Pierce from the Delver reveal, so casting Disfigure right now, Dismember, not a good idea.
Well, he does have a Daze, so it's just an issue if he wants to trade a Daze for a Spell Pierce.
I guess that's a question.
But I don't see any reason to risk it. He can just untap and make the same sequence next turn.
No Mongoose to draw. There's a Dismember. 4 more life paid. Phyrexian mana, very powerful. And now, a Nimble. And passing of the turn. Costa, let's see what he draws.
If Danny is anticipating a lot of Sultai Delver this weekend, I really like playing with Dismember.
As do I. Kills Tombstalker, Tarmogoyf, Tassiger.
Yeah, 5 times this is really important for that deck.
Nimble Mongoose is in play on each side. Looks like Jessup has 6 cards in his graveyard. Looks like Costa does as well. Yep. Though both players with fetch land in play.
Yep. Though Danny kind of has to be the one sitting here for the time being because of the way the damage race looks.
Wasteland will take care of Tropical Island. Passing of the turn.
If Danny attacks, Costa most likely just says no blocks and try to race back.
Costa has found Lightning Bolt number 3. Jessup will block. Jessup's draw, another copy of Nimble Mongoose. That's going to resolve. Costa, a Tarmogoyf. He'll sacrifice Flooded Strand. Always loving Legacy. You sacrifice a fetch land against a Delver deck. You say, is this okay?
Yep.
Give them the look. They say, that's fine. I have no Stifle. Get yourself a Tropical. And try to deploy a Tarmogoyf. These two very familiar with each other, playing in the Northeast, run into each other at PTQs all the time. There is Tarmogoyf. Here is Daze. Bye-bye Tarmogoyf. Jessup's going to draw. Copy of Pyroblast. In for 3 comes the Mongoose. The tide is turning here in Jessup's favor.
These decks are pretty well equipped to answer Delver of Secrets and Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf's a little bit more challenging for Matt, but
Well, that's a big
Nimble
draw.
Mongoose is just, you just got to block, basically.
Now, we saw last time where Jessup slowed down. Now, you wonder if he's going to try to keep going and turn the corner here and keep attacking. It's risky. And he says, nope, can't do it. Delver of Secrets the draw.
I mean, Matt's not doing anything, so it's a reasonable guess here that his hand has a lot of burn. So if it were cantrips, you would have seen it. If there were counter spells, there's been plenty of spots to stick them.
Delver's here. Jessup with 2 answers in hand in Pyroblast and Lightning Bolt. We'll see which one he wants to use. He's picked up a copy of Volcanic Island. There is a Volk. Here is a Bolt. Wants to save the Pyroblast for maybe a Brainstorm. Costa will draw. Picked up a Brainstorm. Will he cast it this turn? He will not. His hand's too good.
Bolt really doesn't do anything other than answer Delver of Secrets.
Yeah.
So that's the one you want to cash in there.
Now here's a Delver. That's good. Jessup's going to draw. Copy of Brainstorm for him. And his hand is bad enough that he's probably going to want to lead out with this. Now, the back of Jessup's mind, he's got to remember that that Spell Pierce is still over there on Costa's side of the table.
Yep. But I agree. He needs some help right now. He has no answer to the Delver, and his hand's pretty bad. He's got to draw right now.
Sylvan Library, Spell Snare, Tarmogoyf. Those cards are good. Looks like he's going to put some lands back.
And now Danny's in the spot where he gets to determine how much he wants to care about Daze in this game. Pretty easy for him to Pyroblast the Delver of Secrets. He's still got 2 mana up.
I mean, we can see a turn like Pyroblast your creature, play Tarmogoyf, move forward. But as you said, it depends on how much he cares about a card like Daze. There's the Pyroblast, pass turn back. He clearly respects it. Costa will draw. Picked up a copy of Stifle. That could actually be good here. Danny could really use that land. Yep, that's going to get stifled. Puts him down to 10, too.
Yeah, and Matt still sitting on these 3 bolts.
And now if you're Danny, you know, your thought process is, all right, 1 bolt's scary. Probably has 2 bolts because he's not casting them because he's had no reason to cast them. And if Danny sacrifices this fetch land, he goes from 10 to 9. That's perfect.
Yep.
How about a Tarmogoyf? Brainstorm in response. Yep. 1 is a Trop. 2 is a Dismember. 3 is Polluted Delta.
And the lands are actually kind of helpful here for Costa. I don't know if he wants both of them, but at least being able to get a second red source of mana allows him to cast 3 bolts over 2 turns if that comes up.
Yeah.
Before he was sort of in the spot where he would cast it over 3 turns. That's a lot slower. It gives Danny a lot more time to draw out of it potentially or find an answer, but now he can just do it at a moment's notice.
Here's dismember. Bye-bye Tarmogoyf. 11-10 in favor of Costa. He's cracking a fetch. And the tough part is it's probably right.
But this is awesome news for Costa.
Yep.
I mean, he's been gripping these 3 bolts for such a long time.
You know, sometimes when you're playing Timur Delver, you're super happy to see your opponent go from 4 to 3. And Danny knows that as he's playing the deck as well. But from 10 to 9, that oftentimes doesn't matter that much, but it matters a lot right now. Jessup will draw a card, one to clear the top of his deck. Looks like he picked up a copy of Delver's Secrets. It's time for that Sylvan Library. Probably time for a Delver 2 with Spell Snare at the ready, but Costa's going to let it rip now. And he's got defense with the Spell Pierce in hand.
Exactly.
And if you're Danny and you're Lightning Bolt me now, oh God. My Delver, right? You met my Delver? Nope. You can see it. You can see the body language. He knows it's coming.
Right. He has a Spell Snare, and even if he had a counter, you know, if it's Daze, Costa can pay for it, and if it's Pierce, he can pierce back.
Yep. As crazy as this matchup can be, sometimes patience is the key. And Matt Costa demonstrated that in spades during these 2 games. As these Lightning Bolts are going upstairs, and that is going to get the job done. And Costa's going to win the mirror match 2-0. He moves on to 4-0, giving Jessup his first loss of the tournament.
Hard to know that cracking down that fetch lane going from 10 to 9 is going to be what does you in there. The way that it shook out, he could have used his mana in a different way, still lived up the fetch land, but again, it's just hard to predict the 3 bolts.
And given that he knew that his next card he was going to draw because he put it back from Brainstorm,
exactly.
he knew he didn't want that card. And, you know, what's the harm in going from 10 to 9? Well, you just found out right there.
It's on Danny's radar, I'm sure, that 3 bolts can be hanging out there, but he has to believe he has to be able to beat 3 bolts also for him to play around it.
Sure.
If he feels like at some point I'm going to take a point of damage, I'm going to have to cast Force of Will, crack a fetch land, whatever, and it's just not worth trying to play around that scenario. But as it stands, Costa with 3 bolts in hand, and now moves on to 4-0.
He is 4-0. For Jessup, that's his first loss. So you have to imagine players like Kevin Jones, Joe Lissette, Ross Merriam,